Travis Hunter is elite at 2 positions, but there's one problem. The NFL won't let him play both ways, and they're already starting to hint at that.
You are Locked On Buffs, your daily podcast on the Colorado Buffaloes, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to Locked On Buffs. I'm your host, Kevin Borba. Today's episode is brought to you by the Locked On Podcast Network. It's your team every day for free and available wherever you get your podcast. Make sure to like, subscribe, follow, and all that jazz, so that way you don't miss out on a moment of our coverage. We're also brought to you by just good vibes and Locked On Buffs over here. So if you're not an everydayer, become one, because this show's not possible without them. We're so close to 7,000 subscribers. Let's get there. Let's also talk about the Travis Hunter dilemma. I think Travis Hunter, let me preface this because I know you guys are going to want to jump on me in the comments. I think Travis Hunter, what's this thing on, is good enough to play both ways in the NFL, but I don't think NFL teams want him to play both ways for financial reasons, and simply because I don't know if there's a way to maximize him as a player if he plays 2 positions part-time, right? I don't know if that's going to happen, right? Because it's not going to be like college where they play him full-time both ways. I just don't foresee that happening, and if they do, I don't know how long he'd be able to sustain that. So we'll just have to sort of go off what we're hearing. So if you guys didn't know, the NFL Combine starts this week, and we're getting a lot of feedback about Travis Hunter, right? A lot of people are talking to teams about him and what position they think he can play. And so Brian Callahan, the Tennessee Titans head coach, was asked if he believes Travis could play both ways. And he says, yeah, it's very realistic. He's a unique player. There's not a whole lot of other players who you can compare to what he's done. There's not many guys that have played that many snaps on both sides of the ball. And you watch his tape and you see his ability to play both at a very high level. He said, I think that anybody you talk to about him is going to say the same thing, that he's got the ability to play both. And I think you'll find out where he fits when you get him. But he's got a unique ability to do a lot of things, end quote. So that stands out, right? He said the part that's standing out to me is you'll find out where he fits when you get him. So basically that's him saying you're not going to know what position he plays until you draft him. So that's like, okay, so we're already talking about that. And then according to Cameron Wolf of NFL Network, the way that teams were talking about Travis, starting with the Titans, they view him as a corner. And then the Browns view him as a receiver, who is also a unicorn. So I think, what does this mean? Well, realistically, and I've said this before, and I think this upsets people, I think when Travis Hunter gets to an NFL team, they are going to sort of flirt with the idea of like, hey, play both ways. Yeah, we'll see what happens. We'll see your impact, right? And then you're going to realize, hey, we spent a top 5 pick on this guy, and he's on the field 50% of the play, or like 25% of the plays here, 10% of the plays here, right? Like, there's not going to be a perfect balance for Travis Hunter. And so I think the biggest reason the NFL won't let him play both ways, and when I say the NFL, I mean these teams, right? When the teams draft him, I think they'll flirt with the idea. I think they'll entertain it at first. But ultimately, and this is my take on the matter, I think they're going to make him decide or decide for him and then go from there, right? Because he's going to be under contract. So it's going to be like, oh, you don't want to play? Well, then, I mean, tough, right? You're under contract for 4 years, right? So I think Travis Hunter is widely viewed as a top 5 pick. So if, say, he goes from picks 1 through 5, he's going to be making anywhere from 35 to 42 million. His average annual salary will be anywhere from 8.9 to 10 million. And then he's going to get a signing bonus of 22 to 27 million dollars, depending on where he's drafted. So that's a lot of money. And then I think we're going to run into, and remember a fella by the name of Jimmy Graham, right? He was a tight end for the Saints, did a little bit of everything for the Saints. He was an elite ball catcher. At the time when his contract negotiations came, the debate was, although he's a tight end by trade, he is a receiver talent, right? He catches the ball like receiver. He makes plays like receiver. And so the whole thing was, he's a tight end that wants to be paid like receiver because receivers get paid more. And so if you're a team in the NFL and you have this talented player, are you going to, and this is, I mean, teams could make a different decision, but this is just me thinking, right? are teams going to want to pay him more money, or are they going to want to be able to figure out a way to keep him at one position, which keeps him healthy, and also keep him at the cheaper position, right? Because Travis is generational at both. If Travis was just a corner, he would be a top 5 pick or a top 10 pick probably. If he was just a receiver, same thing, right? I think there's a little bit of this like unicornness to him, which really propels him or solidifies him as a top 5 pick because he does both. But I think at the end of the day, people view him as either or. They don't view him as both. And so when I talk about this, and I've talked about this before, it comes down to money for me for the NFL, right? If I was Travis or his people or his team, I would want to play receiver. Receivers get paid way more. The highest 3-year salary, or the total, the highest, we'll go total guaranteed money, highest corner is Patrick Surtain at 73.9, which is, not a bad living, right? Highest receiver total guaranteed is 110. So for reference, Patrick Surtain, 73.9, would have him below receivers like Brandon Ayuk, Amon-Ra St. Brown, who are, both really good receivers, but neither of those guys are the best in the league. AJ Brown's good. DJ Moore, like receivers are getting paid a ton more, right? So if I was Travis, I would be like, hey, I want to play receiver and I'll help out at corner if you need me. But I think this mindset of like, I'm going to play both ways for whoever drafts me, I don't know if it's going to happen, because the way NFL teams are talking about it right now, at least from day one of the combine, is that they view him as X or Y, right? They don't view him as an X who could do both. They are sort of telling us like, hey, we view him this way. And so if we view him that way, we are going to play him that way, right? The Browns cornerback said he's primarily a receiver, but he's a unicorn. So it's like, okay, that's interesting. I think it comes down to need, right? What team or what do these teams need? I think that's just, I don't know. Like, it's, what do the Browns need more, right? The Browns need a quarterback because they're terrible. So I don't know if they'll even have to worry about drafting Travis, but, and Deshaun Watson's horrible. So they need a quarterback. But at the end of the day, these teams are going to draft Travis based on what they need. They're going to, I think, entertain it, but I don't think it's going to be a long-term thing, right? I don't even know, say Travis gets to the league, who knows if he wants to do it long-term, right? Because I think the NFL is just so much more physical than college, even though he's playing double the snaps than everybody in college. The NFL, from what I've been told from guys who have played in the NFL, and I think a lot of people have heard accounts like this, is it feels Monday morning or Tuesday morning, depending on when you play, or Friday morning. When the day after the game, right? The day after you play a game, it feels like you've been in a car crash. And they do that every single week, right? And I'm not saying that the college game doesn't feel like that, but I don't know if NFL teams are going to be as willing to give Travis the leeway that Coach Prime gave him, because Travis didn't really practice with the team, right? He didn't practice all the time with the team, at least. He put a lot of effort and work into his recovery. That being said, he was doing that for a 13-game season. The NFL has a minimum of 17 games. You make it to the playoffs, you could play even more, right? Is Travis Hunter going to hold up? He's had injury issues, right? I think all of these are factors. Travis Hunter has been banged up every year. He got hurt against Kansas State this year. He got hurt and missed a few games last year. Got hurt at Jackson State. Got hurt in high school. Travis Hunter has always dealt with injuries. He's on the smaller side, and he plays a receiver or a position at receiver or corner who's going to be a part of a lot of hits, if you will. He's going to be hit a lot or hitting. So what would you do if you're an NFL team, right? Do you take the chance and risk it? And then, like, you don't want to run him into the ground, but do you sort of appease him and be like, hey, we'll let you do it, but if it doesn't work out, we're pulling the plug? Or do you just go, hey, we think you're better at this, and we're going to play you at that position, and you're just going to have to deal with it? Let me know what you guys would do, because I think it's a very controversial matter, to say the least. When we come back, Mel Kiper has Shedeur Sanders. Perfect fit. This episode of Locked on Buffs is brought to you by our sponsors over at PrizePicks. March basketball is here. There's no better way to get in on the action than with PrizePicks, the best place for daily fantasy sports. With PrizePicks, you pick more or less on at least 2 player projections, and if you're right, you could win up to 1,000 times your cash. It's fast, easy, and keeps every game exciting. It's quick and easy. I love how I can make all my picks in less than 60 seconds and stay engaged all game long. They have fast payouts when I win my money. It hits my account in as little as 15 minutes, no waiting around. So download the app today and use code LOCKEDONCollege to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. That's code LOCKEDONCollege for $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. PrizePicks, run your game. It's NFL draft season, so we're doing a lot of NFL draft coverage because the Buffs have a lot of players who are going to be in contention for these top spots. Let's talk about it. Shedeur Sanders is widely viewed as one of the best quarterbacks. I think today an NFL Network guy said something interesting that there's still a lot of questions about who's QB1 in this class. They kind of threw Quinn Ewers into the mix, which was shocking. Cam Ward is kind of viewed as the de facto, according to Mel Kiper, but everyone's being told different things and everyone has different sources. So it's hard to really tell, right? So we're just going to have to wait and see. That being said, Mel Kiper did provide an interesting, perfect, quote unquote, perfect landing spot for Shedeur Sanders. And it's New York, but it's not the team you're thinking of. Mel Kiper thinks that the perfect landing spot is for Shedeur Sanders, for Shedeur Sanders is the New York Jets. He says, quote, Shedeur in New York with the Jets to me is perfect. He's used to the bright lights. He's going to come in there. He's not going to be intimidated by it. He had to deal with all the expectations at Colorado, his father, Deion. He's been around this pressure-packed environment basically his whole life. I know, or he knows I love Shedeur. He's my QB1. And then he said, quote, so you put him with the Jets with Josh Allen, Tua Tagovailoa in that division. Are you kidding me? And now Drake May coming along. I really like the pick. If he's there, I think you've got to take Shedeur Sanders if you're the Jets. Now, here's where things get complicated with his perfect pick. The Jets have the 7th pick. Granted, they did say they're willing to trade today. So maybe that means they're going to trade up. The Lions are linked to Matthew Stafford, so maybe there's like a deal they could work out. Jets trade up to 3, draft Shedeur. Giants trade back, draft whoever, say Travis Hunter, Ashton Jeanty, whatever they want at 7 because they traded away Stafford. Who knows? But here's what I like and dislike about the Jets, right? I think as a whole, the Jets have been pretty dysfunctional, right? I think the best quarterback that they've had in recent years, probably Mark Sanchez, right? I think they've had talented quarterbacks, right? Sam Darnold is decent now. Aaron Rodgers is obviously a legend, but he was terrible this past year. So what do I like about the Jets? Well, they have a good running back room with Breece Hall, Braylon Allen to sort of help Shedeur out, right? The one thing he hasn't had or didn't have at the college level, at least in Colorado, was a run game. So having a run game to open up the play action pass, big deal for him, right? I think that's something that could take Shedeur's game to another level. And I also think it's something that could help him progress as a rookie by not having to be the superhero. Receiver-wise, they have Garrett Wilson. He's one of the better young receivers in the league. They have Alan Lazard. Devontae Adams is going to leave, but I think they have pieces, right? I think the Jets are going to have some pieces to work things out. That being said, they do have a new head coach in Aaron Glenn. He was a defensive coordinator for the Lions, and he's also hired as his offensive coordinator Tanner, I think it's Engstrand, who is a guy that spent some time with the Detroit Lions. So clearly, I mean, the Lions offense was firing on all cylinders, right? So I feel like that could be a good fit there. Do I love the pairing of a rookie quarterback with a rookie head coach for Shedeur? Not really. Right? I'd rather him go to somewhere where there's a little bit more experience in that department. But that being said, Shedeur is a big market quarterback, or is a big market name, and I think he would thrive in the big market. I just don't know if the Jets are the right team because, I mean, I feel like the Jets. Let's go through it. They've drafted Mark Sanchez. I don't remember if he was supposed to be the franchise quarterback. We'll just say for S&Gs he was. Zach Wilson, bust. Sam Darnold, bust. Right? They've taken so many chances on quarterbacks and it just doesn't work out for them. It's like, do I think that Shedeur could thrive? I think Shedeur is going to thrive anywhere he goes. That being said, the Jets have a bad track record. I do think it's an interesting fit. I'm not mad at the fit, but I do think, one, I don't think he falls to 7 like Kiper had him, because we'll just go to Kiper's mock draft. I feel like his mock draft is a little bit interesting because it's like, what does he know or what does he think he knows? Because I think there's a lot of moves where it's like, okay, he's clearly planning for something to happen. Like he's planning for these moves to happen where it's like, okay, he's like, he knows something's going to happen in free agency or something, because obviously he's like scheming around certain things where it's like all of a sudden he had a quarterback going here 9 times out of 10. Now he doesn't. So let's just run through it. Tennessee Titans taking Abdul Carter. Cleveland Browns taking Cam Ward. New York Giants passing on a quarterback and taking Travis Hunter. So what does this tell me? Because the Giants need a quarterback. They've talked about wanting to get a quarterback. So it tells me that they're going to lean to free agency. The Patriots, they obviously have a quarterback. They go Will Campbell, offensive tackle. Jacksonville Jaguars, they have a quarterback. They go Mason Graham, defensive tackle for Michigan. The Raiders, they need a quarterback, right? That's sort of been the team that Shedeur's been linked to from, I think, the start of the year. And all of a sudden, they're drafting Ashton Genty, right? What does that mean? Well, Mel Kiper flirted with the idea. Excuse me. Flirted with the idea. He flirted with the idea, as I choke on my saliva, if you will, that they would get Sam Darnold or Justin Fields or maybe Matthew Stafford. Like, so clearly he thinks all these teams in the top 5-10 picks don't want a quarterback that bad, right? They're like, we'd rather take a more proven guy. And then he has the Jets taking Shedeur at 7. And it's interesting because he's not expected to fall this far. At least he hasn't been yet. But with with free agency opening next month and teams starting to make trade decisions or contract decisions, clearly there may not be as much of a quarterback market at the top as we initially thought, right? When I looked at this order, I went Titans need a quarterback, Browns need a quarterback, Giants need a quarterback, Raiders need a quarterback, Saints need a quarterback, and yeah, that's 5 of the top 10 teams, but there's only 2 quarterbacks going, and of those top teams, like there's no other quarterbacks going the rest of the first round, by the way, but it's not the quarterbacks going where we thought they were. So it'll be real interesting. I don't know if that's the perfect fit because neither of the New York teams have been consistent. If I'm someone in Shedeur's corner, I'd be like, big market, yeah. Track record, no. But if I'm comparing it to the Browns, I'd rather be in New York than Cleveland. So at the end of the day, I mean, I guess we'll find out what happens. But really interesting, perfect fit there from Mr. Mel Kiper Jr. When we come back, we're going to be talking about the spring game drama happening around college football and what I think Coach Prime should or may do. Welcome back to Locked On Buffs. Appreciate you guys for tuning in every single day, making me your first listen of the day. We're free and available wherever you get your podcast. Make sure to like, subscribe, and follow so that way you don't miss out on a moment of the coverage. We are free and available wherever you get your podcast. Make sure to remember that because we're here every day. Let's talk about it. There's spring game drama, if you will, around college football because teams are canceling, right? Alabama, Texas, Nebraska, Ohio State, they're all either canceling it or doing some USC, another one. They're doing some like weird form of like, hey, we're going to do spring appreciation day so the fans could come out and meet the players and we're going to bring back the alumni and it'll be a blast. And it's like, okay, why are we getting rid of spring games? Well, there's 2 reasons that make sense. Tampering and the college football calendar changing. Teams who make the playoff can play a maximum of 17, I think 18 games if you play against Hawaii at Hawaii. I think there's like the Hawaii rule where you get to play an extra game. But regardless, if you make it to the title game, that's 17 games. Your season's longer and you're finishing later, right? So your players are more banged up. They need more time to recover. So teams are calling it off because of that. They don't want their players to be as violent. There's a lot of OTA style camps going to happen now where it's like, we're just going to run through things in shorts. We're not going to put on the pads for X amount of time, right? Then there's tampering. Teams are not thrilled with the transfer portal window right after spring. They think that if they play a spring game, like Matt Rule was like, our spring game was televised 10 times or however many times, right? That gave other teams a chance to be like, hey, we see you. We don't think you're going to play there. We'll pay you X amount of dollars to come here and we'll play you. And so that's a factor. Now, do I think Coach Prime should cancel the spring game? No, because he brings in so many new players. I think Coach Prime is one of the exempt programs, honestly. I don't think Colorado is going to lose anyone in the spring transfer portal window that is expected to be a starter, right? If they lose someone, it's going to be a guy who wasn't liking where he was on the depth chart, which means he wasn't going to make that much of an impact anyway. These guys where they're like fringe starters, where it's like, hey, we really liked you as the third receiver. We're going to make you our second receiver and pay you X amount of dollars. Or, hey, you're a backup quarterback there, but we'll pay you like Julian Lewis or say Caden Salter, whoever loses that job, right? Maybe another team's going to come circling and be like, hey, come over here. Because that's just how the nature of the beast works. That being said, I think Colorado needs the spring game to sort of continue to develop this continuity because it's one of those things where you bring in, I think Colorado's around 20 new guys, but they bring in around 50 guys every year, new guys, and they'll have high school guys too. So it'll be 30, almost 40 new guys. You bring in this many new guys, you want to get them on the field together as much as possible. So I think for Colorado, it's a little bit complicated because it's like on one end, do you want to preserve your players? On the other, you got to take advantage of any chance you could get for them to play together. So I don't think they should cancel it. If they modify it, maybe it's like a 7-on-7. Like the spring game doesn't need to be a full game. And even the first one I went to wasn't a full game. They had full game moments, but then there was like one-on-one drills. There was offensive line versus defensive line, offensive line versus offensive line stuff. So we'll just have to wait and see, right? But I think that it's going to be a lot more common in college football. Don't be surprised if it happens in Boulder because it's sort of the trend now. It's sort of this thing where it just doesn't make sense with the way the current college football calendar lays out. So thank you guys for tuning in to Locked On Buffs, making me your first listen of the day. Like I say, we are free and available wherever you get your podcast. Make sure to like, subscribe, and follow so that way you don't miss out on moment of coverage. I will see you guys tomorrow. I hope all of you have a great rest of your day.